To begin?
Yep, we're now live on YouTube.
Hello, members. Thank you for joining the meeting this evening on the 11th of January 2021. This is the Service Improvement and Efficiency Committee, being chaired by myself, Justine Thomas, and being joined by members of Broadland District Council. So the first item on the agenda is to ask if any members have any declarations of interest. I'm going to ask Jess, would you please conduct a roll call to confirm attendance? And at the same time, if you could, members, if you could say if you have any declarations to declare. Thank you.
Of course, Chair. So Councillor Bullman.
Here and
Councillor Catchpole.
Present, no declarations been.
Councillor Emsell.
Present, no declarations.
And Councillor King.
Present, no declaration.
Councillor Murrell.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Nurdin.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Roper.
Present, no declarations.
Councillor Thomas.
Present, no declarations.
Thank you. And I notice we also have Councillor Kelly in the meeting. Do you have any interest to declare?
No declarations of interest, Jessica.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Do you have any of those, Jess?
Okay, so I've received apologies from Councillor Mackie.
Okay, thank you very much. So item 3 and 4 on the agenda. Item 3, minutes of the meeting. The last meeting of the committee was held on the 5th of October 2020. So I'd just like to ask if anybody has any issues with accuracy with regard to the minutes, if you'd like to raise that now. And I'm guessing that's a no. Can't see anybody. Are there any matters arising from the minutes? I can't see anybody. Okay, thank you. So in order to confirm this is a true and accurate record, I think we're happy if everybody would put their hands up. I believe that's correct. Is that right, Jess?
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, and that appears unanimous, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on, item 5. So this is the Spark Transformation Programme update, and we're going to be getting updates from the 2 lead officers. So for anybody who's watching this live on YouTube, that's Emma Hodds, who is our Assistant Director of Governance and Business Support here at Broadland Council, and Hannah Ralph, who's Assistant Director, Chief of Staff. So Emma, am I correct that you're going to be going first, or is it Hannah?
We're going to do our usual double tag team between us. We'll probably take you straight to Appendix A, page 13 of your agenda, and take you through the highlights from that. So I'll just pass to Hannah for the first one, which is joint website.
Thanks very much. And what I'd ask if members want to, if I've got any comments, rather than saving everything up till the end, if we could, if you want to put your hands up or put something in the chat, and then after each little section, we'll go back and we'll have a look at what comments and questions people have got, if that's okay. Thank you.
I think there's a question, Chairman, from Councillor Nurdin.
Councillor Nurdin.
Thank you, Justine. When I was going through the papers and looking at page 13, where we're talking about the update, and then we go on priority for next month, and the first bullet point already talks about what we're going to do next month is we'll continue through to December. Now, I wasn't sure when they were talking about as December, is it December next month? As in this report was prepared in November last year, or is it next month?
Forgive me, Councillor Nurdin, which exact page are you on? I can't see anything on page 13 or 14, unless I'm being a bit dim, sorry.
Okay, under comments column, we've got update and then 3 bullet points, and then we've got priority for next month. And the first bullet point talks
page
about
13.
prototypes. Yeah.
Okay, perhaps I can just ask Hannah to address that now.
Happy to come in. So the update was drafted during the start of December. So next month refers to January, so the month that we're in now. So some of the things we'll be able to verbally update in terms of progress that's been made so far.
So I think priority for next month, that means as in January 2021, just for clarification.
It does indeed, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
if that
you.
could be clarified next time, please.
Okay, Hannah, would you like to go ahead? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and happy to pick that up. So in terms of joint website, good progress has been made on this over the past month or so. So the final designs of the website have been agreed and are now being progressed and scoped up by our partner company, Jardoo, who are supporting us in the development of that. To update in terms of the latest progress, so last week we received the initial test site to look now moving beyond sort of 2D designs to ensure that the functionality is absolutely there, and we'll be sharing the draft final designs with members shortly again, so they have the oversight of that before the website goes live at the start of June. Content continues to be developed across the councils by service areas who are currently reviewing that to ensure it gives our customers as much and as accurate information as possible for the new website going live. But as I say, there are a number of member engagement sessions planned over the coming few months before we go live at the start of June, when members will have the opportunity to see how the new test site is working. I'll now pass it over to Emma, who's going to give an overview of joint email.
So can I just interrupt? Sorry, Emma. Councillor Holland has joined, and also Councillor Prutton. Before we go any further, do we need to, good evening, welcome. Before we go any further, do we need to ask them if they have any declarations of interests?
Yes, please. Yep.
Okay. Jess, would you like to do that?
Yep. So Councillor Holland.
Yeah, apologies, everybody. I didn't have the link to Zoom for various reasons. Yes, I have no declarations. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Prutton.
Sorry I was late. I've been in a queue booking my COVID jab. I joined the queue at number 31 and I couldn't give up at 5 to 6. No declarations of interest.
Thank you, Councillor Prutton.
Councillor Brennan's just joined the meeting as well. So.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Leah. Councillor Brennan, do you have any interest to declare?
No sorry again, apologies for late arrival, but no declarations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. If we could move on then with item number 2, which is the joint email. Thank you.
Of course. So the joint email is continuing with the trial migrations. We kind of started that testing work back in October. We're doing a lot of testing on the background in terms of how Office 365 links in with all our various other systems and platforms behind the scenes. We have had a slight impact on resources, but we're not expecting that to impact on the end date at this point in time. We're doing initial testing, as I said, on application users, and we will look to start migrating users from April. That's probably about a 3-month project, migrating users over, and members will obviously be part of that migration. We are planning at the moment an all-member briefing in the probably next 2 to 3 weeks to take you through, all members through, in a bit more detail in terms of the Office 365 project, how that impacts on you, the training, etc., that we'll be putting in place for that. Is there any questions on that, or I'll move on to the next one? I'll move on. Domain migration is kind of the bit in the middle between the website and Office 365. So that's covered across those 2 projects, and we're working through that, covered above projects 1 and 2. In terms of project 4, that's the One Network. This is the 1.2 million that we had the budget secured for back in February 2020. We have gone out to the market. We've had 3 responses to that tender. We're currently going through the final stages of the evaluation, and we've undertaken a quality assurance review of that scoring and of the due diligence that's been undertaken, and we hope to start drafting recommendations to take that through to Cabinet for a decision. Due to the value, that will be a Cabinet contract award. It doesn't look like questions. I'll move on to project number 5, which is strategic approach to systems transformation. This started early in December, where we had some stakeholder meetings with leaders. We're involved in that, and portfolio holders for IT as well as directors and assistant directors. We've now started this week the first set of meetings on that with assistant directors, setting out their kind of strategic review of what system alignment looks like, and then there will be workshops with all of our staff that use those systems. So that will basically set out for us our strategy and our approach to our system change and our system implementation, and what that programme of work looks like over the next 3 years. So quite a pivotal and important piece of work ongoing at the moment. Hannah, I think it's back to you.
Thank you. So the next piece of work, number 6, is our business intelligence and governance project. So this is its scoping phase at the moment, looking at how we utilise the data and our systems to continuously improve our service areas. So scoping work's been underway with our service leads and also our data system owners in terms of what we currently have in place, and recommendations are being developed currently in terms of a new strategy and approach to how we really maximise the data and intelligence that we hold as a council. I'll pause there before I move on to the next one. No. Okay, so the next area is around new ways of working programs. So there's a whole heap of different projects that fall into this scope, and part of that has looked at our return to the office, so looking at where our services and service areas are based across our 2 sites, responding to the COVID regulations that are in place, although at the moment we still have the majority of our staff working from home and the arrangements in place to support that. We've also been doing a scoping piece of work around our reopening to customers. Obviously, if people are turning up to our offices at the moment, there is support in place to respond to that, but we're looking at what the arrangements will be in place once we're in the position to open more widely to customers as the pandemic softens in its impact, hopefully over the coming few months. We've also have arrangements for post in place and a new approach to how we manage that across our sites and with home working. And there's also work underway around laptops, as has been discussed at cabinets and councils, and member IT, which I know is picked up as a later item on the agenda. I'll pause there before I move on to the next one. No. So the other piece of work that is currently underway, number 8, is the customer satisfaction and experience work. So this is looking at developing a new customer strategy across the councils, again looking to utilise customer insight and feedback to improve our services, also looking to develop a new customer service charter, and that will again come through members for review before being taken forward into the public domain. Linking to the customer satisfaction work is also a project around complaints and how we handle complaints, looking at both informal feedback and comments that come through from customers, but also our formal complaint process and how we handle that in the most effective way. Again, that project is currently being scoped through, and an interim proposal has been put forward to put our complaints onto a system which was already in place to manage that more effectively, but also look longer term about how we manage the complaints across the business.
Could I just comment on that? Sorry. Sorry, have you finished, Hannah?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Chairman.
I just wanted to point out that members will notice that says new, and I actually asked Hannah where that came from, and I think you explained to me, didn't you, Hannah? It came out of number 8, so it's almost like a subsection. I think it's just good to know where that's come out of, that we're not just plucking things out of thin air.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, Chairman. So absolutely, the complaints approach was part of the customer satisfaction experience, but due to the processes in place, it was felt it would be good to bring that out and take that as a project in its own right, and be able to move forward a bit quicker with that piece of work. So that's why it's been drawn out as a separate project on this list.
Just before we move on to resources hub, etc. So has anybody got any questions on any of those pieces of work before we move on? Because we don't want to come back to any of them in case someone's come up with suddenly had a light bulb moment.
Councillor Emshaw's got his hand raised.
Yeah, that was just regarding the obviously the chance for customers to actually have a complaint, if you know what I mean, or have a way. Obviously, social media is, that is a very, people like to do things through social media and everything like that. And I know opening up the channels to have that as a means of people complaining would probably get us more input, but I just think it is important that people, if they do have an issue, that they can raise it. And I think obviously having social media channels would be a lot easier for some people than maybe filling in an email form or anything like that. They just want to sort of do like their normal things for when they complain, you know, when they're making comment about other things, just as a point.
Thank you for that. Thanks, Councillor Emsall. Has anybody else got any comments they'd like to make on the previous content?
Councillor Kelly's got his hand raised.
Councillor Kelly.
Yeah, Hannah, in the light of what's been on in the USA, with, you know, inappropriate complaints put through the process, are we going to be vetting it to make sure that we don't have a load of nonsense come through?
So in terms of our complaints handling, so we'll be looking at putting a good process in place that ensures that complaints get to the relevant officers or the relevant teams as appropriate. Obviously, if we have inappropriate comments or things coming through, then those will be dealt in the appropriate way. But obviously, we try to pick up all the feedback that comes through for our customers and target it to the service areas that need to be picking that up. But if there are vexatious or inappropriate comments coming through, then we'll pick that up through a separate channel.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you.
Any more questions on any of the above?
No one's indicating.
Okay, that's great. Could we please move on to Resources Hub then?
Absolutely, Chair. So the Resources Hub, the main project in there to update you on is the organisational development one. This looks at our staff. We employ over 700 staff. It's really right to make sure that we get the right approach and that we get the culture right for the organisation, with our ambition around being the employer of choice. So there's lots of projects ongoing at the moment in terms of organisational development. We've got an OD business partner who has met with every assistant director to talk through all of their teams, to really get under the skin of how those teams work and to look at the development programme that we'll put in place. So there'll be training, a cohort of training for staff put in, our leaders and our leadership development course will be developed, and then also we will look to future leaders and how we develop them and make sure that we actually grow and really foster our own and actually really see them flourish. So that work's really, that's ongoing at the moment. There are a couple of other hub kind of updates. The Broadland procurement of waste contract, I think you're all kind of up to date on where we are with that. That's progressing through with that tender underway, and I believe we've had, I think Jamie confirmed last week, three responses to that. And then, as you all know, went through in December the Best in Class Housing Programme. So that's been given the go ahead by both councils, and that's now progressing, which will be a big piece of work for that directorate as well. I'll just leave that there, Chairman.
That's great. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions on any of the other projects? Any comments? Okay, thank you very much. So I think what we're required to do as per the agenda is to note the content of the report with regards to the progress made.
Councillor
Oh, sorry.
Norton's got his hand raised.
Oh, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah. I know we went through the last three items rather quickly. When I was looking through on page 11, the background, the third bullet point had me rather intrigued, which says there that the collaboration must be strategic in intent, hyphen more than a shared management arrangement. Could I just ask for a little bit more of a, I don't know, clarity on how much more of a shared management arrangement? What are we looking at with when we talk about more than a shared management arrangement? In other words, how is the vision of more than a shared management arrangement arrived at? What are we looking at? The sky's the limit.
So can I just clarify then? You're on page 11 and you're going back to the feasibility study from July 2018, and you would like to ask a question about the third bullet point. Is that right, Grant?
That's correct. Yes, thanks, Chairman.
Okay, so obviously I'm new to chairing this and joined the council after July 2018, but I would imagine this has already been discussed at considerable length, and this is all very well documented. So with respect, I don't know that we want to give too much time to it, but perhaps Councillor Empsall may be able to shed some light on this for Councillor Nurdin, and I defer to his greater knowledge and experience of this matter.
Yeah, I'm just looking for what the point you got there.
Page 11, 2.2, bullet point 3.
Well, I think the way that we've been working with the collaboration has been that there has been that strategic approach moving forward, and I think that is something which we have done to align the departments. You know, that's where we've got that now. We've got obviously the managing director, and then we've got the directors in and the assistant directors, and we are starting to strategically place ourselves in a good place to be working as the two councils collaboratively working together. I think
Councillor Nurdin would like to know if there's any, I think to paraphrase him, he wants to know, forgive me Councillor Nurdin, I'm sure you could speak for yourself, but is there any sort of expansion or is there any change in the strategic intent from what was agreed in July 2018? Has that developed in any way that perhaps we need to make some kind of note on that hasn't been documented previously?
No, what I was just looking at was and on Appendix A, we have organisational development. The strategic aim is to become an employer of choice. And then it goes on through effective people management and leadership development. So we're doing something, but I'm just curious to know if there is anything beyond that they want to make when they say here, more than a shared management arrangement. In other words, do we have any ambitions beyond that? To make it an even more dynamic organisation. You know, as I say, this resource hub thing talks about organisational development, and are we planning to make even greater changes to our organisation or anything, or is that it? Now we've developed, we've identified this project within Spark. Are we going to make it in? Is there anything else we want to do to make it even more?
I understand you now more clearly. There's a few people got their hands up, and I think first comment I'd make for a handover to others is that I think that's for this committee to talk about. That's actually part of why we're here. So, Councillor Empsall, did you have anything else to say before I invite other members to speak?
I was actually hoping that Hannah, where she put her hand up, was going to be able to say it a little bit more clearer than I could say it for Grant.
If we may, then let's pass over to Hannah, and I can see Councillor Roper and Councillor Holland have indicated they would like to speak. But if we could, Hannah Ralph, if you could speak first, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think just a clarification that point is in reference to the organisational change that occurred in January this year, where we put in place the one team across the two councils. So rather than organisational change just being at that senior management level, it was a whole organisational change which has already taken place and has been in post now for over a year.
Thank you. I think Councillor Holland I saw indicated, then Councillor Roper.
Yes, thanks. I was just, I'm like you, Justine, I'm new to this, so I wasn't here then. All I would like to know is, can you just confirm that the bullet points you have there, we could find those in the feasibility study as you've written them? So building on Grant's point, the collaboration must be strategic in intent, more than a shared management arrangement. Is that actually something that we could find if we go back to the feasibility study? Is that in there? That's what I'm asking.
Absolutely, they're in the feasibility reports that went through in the summer of 2018. That's all in there for you.
Councillor Roper.
Thank you. I've got a little bit of a lag, so if I stop speaking, that will be why. I think partly what Councillor Nurdin was perhaps indicating at is, with the beginning of the feasibility study, we started a journey, and what keeps potentially changing is actually what the destination is on that journey. And much as we you know, you can say, well, we're looking backwards here. Well, actually, I think that kind of the prize that we're looking at here does keep changing as we move along, and that's natural in a project. So I think in terms of the strategic intent, I think perhaps the question which is coming up is about the journey. I think I would also just look at the first bullet point on there, and we appreciate the default to harmonisation wherever possible. And I think the big asterisk on wherever possible is actually where there is members' appetite for that harmonisation, and a conversation which I've had several times with the managing director is, much as I appreciate from an efficiency and from a dynamism point of view, yes, you would want to scrape every single barnacle off the boat and get things as harmonised as possible, but members are pretty attached to some of those barnacles, and to take that into account. And as members, we always say we are.
Councillor Roper's gone. I don't know if he's muted himself. We didn't catch
No,
the end of
I
what you
think
said
we've-
then,
I think
Councillor
we've-
Roper.
I think we've
Oh.
lost him.
You all froze as I finished, so I wasn't sure if you got all of it or
We
quite what.
got to your barnacles, Councillor
The
Roper.
barnacles analogy. That's as far as it went. That's fine.
That's great. I think Emma Hodds would like to say something on that point.
Yeah, I do think you're absolutely right. The terms of reference for this group is to look at the work that flows out of the feasibility study, but I don't think we're here to revisit the feasibility study and rehash exactly all the points that were in there. Those bullet points are in there to simply help you shape and understand the frame within which we work. So everything that we do hinges off that feasibility study. So I think we accept that that's what it is, and we then work from that. I think our focus needs to be, Chair, on the projects and as they're working through, to make sure they tick those boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think intention, as Councillor Roper's pointed out, is something that happens in the past. But I think what he's reminding us to be aware of is what we term, I think, scope creep, and actually us all as a committee being mindful of where we're going in our collaboration. I think that's perfectly fair. Did anybody have any other comments to make on
Councillor
the
Prutton.
Spark report? Oh, Councillor Prutton. Hello, Councillor Prutton. Go ahead.
Sorry, Councillor Prutton, you're muted.
Beg your pardon, I'm so sorry. I wonder if one word change would make it more easily understandable if the word rather was put in place of the word more. So it was rather than a shared management agreement. Does that clarify the issue at all for Councillor Nurden?
I think the feasibility study is a document that's already in existence, Councillor Prutton. So I'm not sure Emma could advise, but I don't think that's within our remit to change it now. And it's
those are really words. So those words have actually been lifted straight out. Is that so?
Absolutely, they are a direct lift out of the feasibility study.
Okay, I didn't realise they were a direct lift. Okay. Thank you,
Councillor Prutton, for your input there. Thanks. Okay, does anybody have anything else to say on the items that have been presented in terms of the Spark report?
Councillor Catchpole with a hand raised.
Thank you, Chair.
Catchpole.
I suppose as I was here, and it was my very first experience of being a councillor because I was elected in a by-election in 2018. It was new at the time, but one of the things that really stood out to me from the feasibility report was that the savings were not dependent on the reduction of staff numbers. So the savings were not due to come from staff costs. And we were told at the time that the staff numbers would stay fairly similar. I heard today that a member of staff whose position is the Senior Economic Development Officer is going next week to put repairs to a car park surface because they are so short of staff in the economic development department. And that really is concerning me, that we have moved from a position where a number of very key Broadland staff are no longer with us. And then today I heard this, and I really find it difficult to accept that those savings should be being made by not having staff to do the work that is necessary. And I've been wanting to make that point for a while, but today it just tipped me over the edge. So I'm making it now.
Thank you for raising that point. And perhaps, Emma, just if you could briefly, perhaps you're the most appropriate person to comment on that, given that we have got organisational development is within the Spark report, which is the item on the agenda. Perhaps you could just give us a quick little bit of feedback on that comment, please.
Yeah, absolutely, Chairman. I mean, I can't go into specifics and talk about individuals, as committees know. It's not fair for me to do that. And it's not fair for me to talk about individuals' positions. However, what I can say is that we have not made any changes to structures since the structures that went through and were agreed by council over a year ago and have been placed in for a year. Part of this is around natural turnover of staff, which happen. The council has signed off those structures. We've been working to them. There is natural turnover, and we do need to remember we are in COVID at the moment, and we are having to divert our resources to the right places to deal with the work. But I can assure you that we are very keen to hold on to staff, and we are keen to develop them. I'll probably leave that there, Chairman.
Thanks very much. I think we've had a little bit of discussion around feasibility and things from the past and how that's sort of coming into the future. I think we want to try and stick to the agenda in as much as we can do today, whilst giving people a little opportunity to go off-piste. I think obviously as a committee, the collaboration is key to us because it's a very big part of the work that we're doing as the one team. But if we could continue now, unless anybody has any strong objections, I'd like to continue to the project update telephony. I think before we do that, though, we need to just note the content of the report with regards to the progress made with the programme. And I don't believe that we need a formal vote. Is that correct, Emma?
That's correct. Show of hands is fine, Chairman.
So if everybody's happy to show hands and note that they have noted the content of the report, that would be great. Thank you very much. Brilliant. Thank you very much. So without further ado, could I please ask for the project update on telephony? And I believe that Hannah Ralph and Emma Dodds are once again going to be presenting this. Would you like to go ahead? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll start, and I'm sure Hannah will pitch in. And I've also got Nicola Tulloch here, who has been phenomenal in getting this project underway and really made some absolutely massive changes to the telephony system. I've also got Chris Barmer in the room from IT to answer any more of the technical questions that will no doubt go over my head. So as the committee raised with us back in October, we were having some real issues with Boreham residents being able to get through on the phones. Our abandonment rate was absolutely unacceptable. Completely endorsed the committee's strong view on that. So we pulled Nicola off the work that she was doing to grab this project and really kind of make the improvements that we would expect to see. I'll just take you through a few of the highlights, but I will take the report as read. So we've installed the soft phones across the organisation now. We've sorted out the configurations. We've made improvements to how staff can set up and use their soft phones. I think it's fair to say that the phone system was put in on a response to COVID and was put in a mirrored way to how it used to work before. And I think it's fair to say that this system was then needed to be developed, which is the work that we've done. Nicola's worked really hard with the teams, and our abandonment rate is much better now. We've set up what we call hunt groups. So for example, if I can't answer my phone, I'm in a group with someone who can pick it up, and you'll be able to hopefully have a meaningful conversation, or they'll be able to pass a message on. So that's how that works. The calls coming into the reception are much better filtered now. They've got a better idea of who to send the calls through to because the hunt groups are set up really well. Some further work that we're continuing to do is finalising those hunt groups and looking at team group numbers, which are a really useful way to manage customers' calls. We're rolling out some bite-sized training, some more of that, having that in some bite-sized chunks through using YouTube or things to read, so that everyone's got something that they can pick up on and use. We're starting to identify and train phone champions so that every team will have kind of a super user, if you like, so that if they've got an initial queries, that's who they go to, so that I can lift Nicola away from this project on some more project work. And I just think Appendix A just absolutely shows the journey that we've been on since October, and that abandon rate has come right back down. If I take, for example, the reception at Broadham, which is I know where we have particular concerns as a committee, we've gone from a 13.7 to a 4% abandonment rate, which I think is much improved, and I'm sure our residents would agree. Council tax is getting there, going in the right direction, moving absolutely in the right direction. And then waste and recycling and benefits, absolutely, their abandonment rate is right down there. A little bit more work needed in housing, but as me and Hannah are really pleased with how this has progressed, and we thank the committee for highlighting it in quite the passionate way that you did back in October. But I'm hopeful that you're pleased with the work that we've done on that. I'll leave that there for you.
Thank you, Emma. I can see Councillor Roper has a question.
Thank you. Just looking at the numbers around council tax in particular, I mean, what we see there is quite a significant fall in the number of calls from October to December, which is probably cyclical in some senses of the word. But it does raise a question as to what extent the issue is the telephony system, and to what extent it's actually capacity within the team. Is it just that with a smaller number of calls, the team is handling them better? Or is it the size advance in telephony that's being outlined? That's me with my devil's advocate hat on, by the way.
I'm going to ask Debbie Lorimer, Director for the Brit area, to pick that one up.
Yes, more than happy to answer that, Councillor Roper. Actually, at the moment, we have an outside body that's been taking some of the calls in the initial, as soon as anybody calls, and then reverting back to the back office, because we did have some vacancies in the team, and we've been recruiting to those vacancies, and we're now fully staffed, but obviously those staff had to be trained, which is why we engaged Northgate to do that for us. There were some issues when we investigated actually with those calls coming back into the back office, which was why they were dropped, why there was such an extent of them being dropped in October and November. That's now been rectified, so they are coming back in. What we are doing is monitoring very closely, and now we have this new soft phone system, we can actually get much more detailed reports off the system to actually ascertain when we get our peaks and troughs. And certainly I've got the team and the team leaders making sure people are there on the phones, and actually if we suddenly get a flood of calls coming through, then they will put more people on. So what we're doing at the moment is getting that background data, and as I say, we won't see it straight away, but we're trying to accumulate that background data so we can actually make sure we're staffed up for when we get the peaks. So not only when summons go out, for instance, but if on a Monday, for instance, then when we recruit people, we'll make sure that we get more people in on a Monday. So that's the piece of work that's going on now. We can get hold of that data, which we couldn't do previously.
If I may just follow up, Debbie, on Councillor Roper's question. So in terms of deployment, as deployment requirements change, if you've taken on new people, are their working hours very fixed, or is there some flexibility? If we suddenly started that Wednesday afternoon was the peak day, but previously it had been Monday afternoon, how would that be dealt with?
Certainly all our staff are on flexible contracts, but we have a number of staff that are obviously getting on dealing with, you know, the vast majority of our work actually comes through emails and things like that. So we have people on the phones that are dedicated, so that enables the rest of the teams to get on and do that work, because obviously when a call comes in, it generates a certain amount of work to it. And obviously we get things like house moves and stuff like that. So what we do though is if calls start to increase, then we can pull people off work that's going on in the background and they can take those calls as well. So it's really about us getting to grips and learning when our peaks and troughs are. Some of that will be monthly, and some of that will be when certain things happen, as I say, like summons going out, for instance. We know then that tends to generate a lot more calls as people ring up and hopefully pay what's due. So yes, it's pulling. We've got plenty of staff there. It's about making sure that we pull and use them and react to those increasing call volumes if that's the case. But obviously we don't want to put too many people on the phones, because it's about that balance of making sure we then carry on and deal with the work that's going on in the background too, and enable people to get on and deal with that and process things like the house moves and all those type of things too.
Sounds like there's a lot of good work being done around creating a really good reactive service that acts well for our service users and enables them to get the best out of our people. Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments on the telephony report?
Yep. Councillor Nerdon and Councillor Emshaw.
Should we do Councillor Nerdon first, being as though your name was said first?
Thank you, Chairman. First, there's two things. Firstly, I just wanted to compliment the author of the report, Hannah. In paragraph 5.5, she has identified a risk, and it is well documented, and I'm very pleased to see some thought has gone into identifying the risk. My question relates to Appendix A, and we've looked at those areas: reception, council tax, waste, housing, and benefits. Was there anything thought about with regards to planning, and was there an issue with planning that people or service users were trying to contact the planning department, and they were having great deal of difficulty as well? Because I seem to recall that was one of the areas that members were having an issue with particularly.
Chairman, can I ask Nicola to come in on this, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the reason that planning isn't in those figures is at the time that we're comparing to, the Broadland calls were coming through on a different phone system to the South Norfolk one, so it's very difficult to get the comparison. From now, the Broadland staff are now also on the call centre type work, which is what we use for the high volume. And I have actually got the figures for December for Broadland, which were 8.9%. So a good start when it's taken a while to get everybody transferred onto a totally different phone system. So from January onwards, you'll be able to see, compare the figures fully, and they'll be more meaningful.
Can I just a little bit further on that question, because it's raised something else in my head. When we're drawing up this chart in Appendix A, how do you determine when a call is abandoned? Because and particularly for those particular areas, if somebody phones and gets through to the switchboard or whatever the lady at reception is, and asks to speak to somebody, and they don't get through, is that what an abandoned call is? Or the person says, I want to speak to somebody, and this lady at reception puts them through, and the call doesn't get to the person that they want to? What do you define by call abandoned, and how do you determine when it's abandoned?
Abandoned call is one that's been come through and has been waiting for more than, you can set the time. It's 15 seconds is when it starts counting that it's not been answered by. So it's been people sat in a queue and they gave up. Well, it's not, beg your pardon, it starts counting it, and then it depends how long you can have reports on how long they hung on before they gave up and abandoned the call and didn't get through to the actual caller. So the reception call would have been answered, and then it would be an abandoned call for the team that it then waited in the queue for.
Nicola, do you know what the abandonment time scale is then on our system, and is it different for different departments, or is there a one-size-fits-all timing that we put on?
No, but we could get extensive reports on exactly how long people hung on for at different parts of the day. I tried to simplify the report so it was easy to read and meaningful, but one of the benefits of the system we're using now is that there are very comprehensive amount of data that you can pull. So if you did want to know more about when people abandoned and how long they waited for, that could easily be retrieved for you.
Would it be possible to have that? I think Councillor Nerdon would be interested, and I think probably some other members would as well. It's obviously important for us because we want to, really understand what's going on. So if we could have a sort of written definition of how it's set up at the moment, I think that would be great, and then people can feed back on that appropriate. Is that okay, Grant? Councillor Nerdon?
Who's got his thumbs up, Chairman?
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Does anybody have any other comments they'd like to make on the telephony report, or any questions to ask?
with Councillor Emsler.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Councillor
That's all
Emsler.
right.
I forgot about you. I apologise. Go for it.
I don't know if this is actually relevant to this. With regards to the soft phones, when we're talking about the systems that the staff got, is that also where the Skype business comes in? Is that a way that they have to communicate with each other, or is that a separate system?
That's your Office 365 magic, whatever
Right,
we want to
that's through
call it.
that. Right, sorry, that's all right. Just clearing that up. Thank you.
Any other questions? I can't see, flicking through, I can't see anybody. Okay, so on that basis, I would refer everybody to the recommendations on page 25, which is to note the report with regards to progress. And we don't need a formal vote. So if everybody's happy to note the report with regards to progress, please raise your hand. Are we okay, Jess? Do we have everybody?
Yeah, that looks unanimous.
Excellent. Okay, moving on. Favourite hot topic, members IT update. And we're going to ask Emma Hodds to please present the report. And if you would like to invite members to ask questions and comments, Emma.
Chairman, I'll present the report. I don't know if I want any questions. I think we'll just kind of leave it. No one's got anything they want to ask me about this, have they? I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure not. I'm sure not.
I'm sure not. Okay. So again, this is as a result of obviously discussions we had again at the last CEAT meeting in October, and I'm sure councillors will all recall the discussion we had at council back in November, I think it was, regarding member IT equipment. So we are where we are. The history has written itself, so to speak. So thank you all of those who responded to the survey. I think we had 34 of 47 members respond to that, which was really helpful. And we had a couple of sessions kind of dropping Q&A sessions and further clarity. And again, many thanks for those who contributed to those, because we don't know what we don't know. So the survey was designed to focus on what members need to undertake their role, and it was broken down into 5 kind of sections as set out in 3.2. So this was in terms of what do you need to do your role as a member, what other duties do you carry out on a regular or a scheduled basis to get an idea of that, where and when you need access to ICT services, how you currently access ICT services, including gathering information about use of personal equipment as well as council provided equipment, and then also why members felt that their current equipment doesn't work for them, and that was kind of a free format so we could really get a breadth of answers there. I won't take you through all the answers at 3.3 because you can see those graphs for yourself, but I'm happy to answer any questions there are on there. I think probably where we'd all like to focus on is, okay, so what, Emma, what are we doing next? So I think it's fair to say that we've got a plethora of kind of proposed actions. It was really helpful having that open forum and discussion with members, because a lot of the issues that came as common issues, and I'll come to the variety of responses, but the common frustration is very much around the email and the restrictions that you have on that, and I absolutely do appreciate those restrictions that you have there. As we've talked through in the sessions, Office 365 will open up a whole new world to you all, and you'll be able to access your emails on whatever platform you decide to use. Chairman, you asked a question in the pre-meet about how will we make sure that that's still secure. That will be through authentication. So there'll be a password or a number or something that you will need to generate so that we make sure that that data is still secure, but you can hold that wherever. And obviously that will provide you all of the Microsoft suite and the applications therein. I then move on to where we had a variety of responses. So as many as you have heard that you hate the iPads, I've now heard as many love them. I've heard as many people that want our laptops as many people that don't want laptops. So it's very different to meet 47 requirements. We will try our best. So as discussed, the Office 365 will remove the BlackBerry software, which I know were a lot of frustrations that people had. We'll also look to kind of reinvigorate the training that you've had before. So we're going to put some, get some top tips together on Office 365, some training for you all on email and diary management. I'm just as guilty. I use it in the way that I think I should use it, but I'm sure I could use it in a much more smarter way. We'll provide you training on that, and we'll do that through a range of options. Everybody trains in a different way, so we'll have a plethora of different ways for doing that, and we'll be engaging a suitable trainer to make sure that we absolutely get that rolled out. There are 5 members that were contacted with particular issues that they've raised, and Chris is on the call. He spoke to all 5 of those members to understand their needs, understand their frustrations, understand their particular issues. That has resulted in 1 member, the chairman of Overreview and Scrutiny, provided with a council laptop as a pilot. All that will enable at the moment, as we've explained to members, is the ability to dial into the Zoom meeting, because everything else is held on the iPad at present. So that's been trialled, and we're asking for feedback from that member over the next few meetings. We've also got some equipment on offer at the moment, and I'm not sure if that's landed with us yet, but I think we are still waiting for the supplier to send this in. And this is about how utilising a second screen. With your iPad at the moment, if you want to put it onto your television screen, it will just duplicate what's on your iPad. There's a bit of middle kit that enables you to pan it across, so you can have 2 things on the 2 screens. So we're getting that in so that we can trial that and see how an iPad with a second screen would work. If that's clunky, we may have to provide additional training, but we're going to have some testing on that. One of the things also that I think will, and this is me being a bit cheeky, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. The DEM services team have been after a committee system for a long time now. It will make massive benefits for them, and actually for members, it will make your life so much easier. For those that are twin hatters or have used systems such as mod.gov or CMIS in the past, you just simply go online, log in, and everything is there for you. So again, you don't need your secure area on your iPad. You can access your information from whenever and wherever. There's money in the budget for that for next April. I've got a business case going through at the moment. So just remember that when we're doing the council budget setting, that if you tick that, you'll get some nice little benefits as well. Agenda papers, we will continue to print those in the short term, but it's not proposed that longer term, once you've got the right equipment in place to support you, we will not be proposing to carry on printing. We moved away with that from that some time ago, and we do want to continue that. As I've mentioned earlier as well in the meeting, we've got a all-member briefing towards the end of January, which will absolutely bring you really up to date with where we are on all of this IT work, so that you can understand how it impacts on you, what it means to you, and what changes you'll expect to see. And then a final, if there's any member that's got any specific requirements that hasn't had a chat with Chris, please contact Chris and talk that through with him, and we can look at what we can sort out for you in the interim. So Chairman, I'll leave it there. I am fully expecting quite a few questions.
Thank you, Emma. Okay, who is
Councillor Nerdon?
Councillor Nerdon, please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you. Emma, lovely to hear that. Just one question about the 2 screens and exactly how will that work? Because the reason I'm asking is I went on to the iPad this afternoon and had a look through the papers on this report we're looking at now. I don't have a paper copy, but it would be nice to be able to go through and see that on the screen somewhere. So how exactly would having 2 screens or something like that work? Would we have a second iPad? Would we have a computer which is separate? Or how would you link in the iPad to a TV screen or a, I don't know how that would work. It would be brilliant if it could, but I don't know how that works. So if you could just expand a little bit on that, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the bit of kit that we've got on order from the supplier at the moment to absolutely trial how that would work. I may defer to Chris, and he'll glare at me if I get it wrong, but I'll give it a go and see how my understanding of it is. Basically, what it does, it's this kind of bit of kit that sits between your iPad and a second screen, so a monitor. And what it enables you to do is simply drag your papers across to this second screen. So you can have your Zoom meeting on your iPad, and then on the second screen, you've dragged across your committee papers as an example, or vice versa. We need to test that to see how that works. So we've got that on order. We've got some Broadland iPads that we can test that on and see how that works. The last thing I want to do is give you something that's going to cause you a headache and make life even more difficult, but that's absolutely what we're testing. And I'm just going to test with Chris that I got that right. Oh, he's put his thumbs up, so that's good.
Absolutely, absolutely right, yeah.
Councillor Holland
Thank you.
has a hand.
Councillor Holland, thank you.
Yeah, Yeah, so let me just clarify this then. If you're talking about 2 screens, are you going to provide a second screen, or we can just use this bit of kit to connect our iPad to another screen that we currently own? I don't.
So personally, Councillor Holland, I won't be providing you with a second monitor. No, however, so in seriousness, because we're doing a big refresh of all of our IT equipment, we will look at the stock that we've got, and if we can easily provide you with a second screen, absolutely. Not everybody wants that. It was really interesting from the survey. Some people said, I just don't want any more of your kit. I want my own. Oh, Chris is putting his hand up. I think I might be in trouble. But it will hopefully be a bit of kit that you can use on a screen that we could give you, or one that you've got yourself, but Chris will now tell me off.
Okay.
No, I'm not going to tell you off, because you're absolutely right, Emma. What I would add to that is that aside from extending your iPad onto a monitor, there's also the capability of extending it onto your TV as well. That's another option. Some people may love that, and some people may hate that. And that's down to personal choice, but that's another sort of flexible option. I mean, a lot of people have big TVs these days that are in the sort of region of 45 to 75 inches, and if you were to project your iPad onto that, that's a cinematic members paper experience for you. But there are a couple of different options around using devices like that you already have as well, that doesn't take up any more real estate in your sort of home working or home office environment as well.
Yeah, I get that. That's fine. And just a supplementary then, because I don't want to work in my sitting room where I have a very small TV anyway. So would it go onto it? For example, I've got 2 or 3 laptops. I could use it on a laptop, could I? Would that be? Is that what you're talking about?
That's the testing I think we need to do, isn't it, Chris, to work it out?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's fine.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions on the report?
Councillor Kelly has his hand raised. And
Councillor
Morrow.
Kelly.
Yeah.
Councillor Kelly first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I was one of the individuals who actually had a long talk with Chris. And my previous employment as a projects manager, we used to use 2 screens anyway. And I have to say, the price of monitors, if members wanted to have a separate monitor, which is really handy and which really works effectively if you're trying to swap between different documents, they're really cheap at the moment. And quite honestly, for the price of it is, I suggest that if that's the way you would like to go, then do it, because it's not going to be expensive at all.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Councillor Morrow.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate what Kim was saying there. I mean, I actually work on 2 screens for work, and that's what I'm doing now. So I've got Zoom on one screen, and I've got the papers on the other, and they're really easy to read in that way. So, and you can swap and change different documents. So if you've got lots of documents, and that then makes it easier to read, and especially for not just for this, but especially if you're doing on something like the planning committee, where you've got detailed plans up, you can then zoom in onto the documents, and it makes it very, very much easier to work and read in that situation.
Thank you for that, Councillor Morrell. I think I'm looking at 3 screens now, but I feel like I'm playing screen top trumps because somebody might have 4, so we probably better leave it there. I think my understanding is that if you have a monitor, that you would attach that to, say, a computer or a laptop, either by cable or wirelessly. But I think the thing that Emma and Chris are talking about is for use specifically with the iPad, because you can't plug an HDMI cable from a monitor into an iPad. So I think it's just to do with the different forms of hardware, but we'll look forward to receiving more information on that when it's been through its test. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or comments on the telephony
Councillor
report?
Roper has his hand raised.
Councillor Roper, please go ahead.
On the members' IT report, I think the question which I would come back to was that if a member didn't have their own IT, if they didn't have their own laptop, their own screens, etc., the iPad that being supplied and to be able to, it stands unless something does come about that you can split screen on an iPad and put through to a monitor. If we're on virtual meetings, no, it's not if you don't have a paper copy. I think 365 will be a big step forwards. I think a lot of faith is being put into 365, but I would still come back to that question of, if this was all members had, would it suffice?
Councillor Roper's breaking up my end. I don't know if everybody heard that question, unless it's me that's breaking up. Did you hear that, Emma?
No, didn't hear it. I kind of lost. I kept losing the the pivotal bits of it. I'm sorry.
I think where Councillor Roper got to was he was questioning if somebody only has an iPad. I think his concern was around not having paper copies for meetings, and if somebody doesn't have another screen, how that would play out. Are you back with us, Councillor Roper?
I'm back. I'm back with you. I turned off my budget Wi-Fi, and I'm just running off the 4G at the moment. And
would you
you're
like
all
to just
back on
finish
screen.
the?
Yeah,
would you want to just
indeed.
reiterate the end of your point? Thanks.
I think the point was we rely on councillors having other equipment at the moment, and the question, part of the question was that if someone just had the iPad, would that suffice for them to be able to do their councillor's job? And at the moment, if they don't have the backup paper copies, it will be very difficult for them to do so in a world of virtual meetings. I think this report does put a lot of faith in 365, and I think 365 is good, but I think we probably need to come back to this subject once we've had a try out of 365 to see if it has answered all the questions which we're hoping it will answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roper. Would you like to make any further comments, Emma, on that?
Just to say, in terms of the paper, obviously, as I said, the longer term view is to stop that, but I wouldn't take that away for you and not give you something in return. So I don't want the committee going away thinking, oh, she's not giving us paper copies anymore. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. But it is about, you're right, Councillor Roper, it's about looking at all of the options, everything that we've got available to you, and making an assessment at the right point in time. It would be really wrong for me to sit here now when we've got so much work that we've got coming up over the horizon and say this is the answer to your question, because that absolutely wouldn't be the right thing. And I don't want to drop this with members. We need to continually make sure as things develop that we're hitting the mark with it. So we absolutely will continue to do that.
So I think we've got some assurance there they're not suddenly going to cut off the paper copies, especially while we're hosting virtual meetings. Councillor Nurdon?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I was just a little concerned when I was watching what was happening to Councillor Roper while he was trying to get his message across. And I wonder whether this iPad and the connectivity is not also an issue that members are having difficulty with their IT to do the work that they're supposed to do. Now, he indicated that he'd switched off his broadband and he'd gone on to 4G. And I presume the 4G is part of this IT setup that we have on our iPads. And I don't know, was that an aspect that was also looked at when this review or whatever was done, that as a complete package, is this iPad and the connectivity that comes with it adequate for us to be able to do our job? So it's just a little concern about the broadband aspect of it as well.
So connectivity was covered off in the survey. You're right, all of your iPads have 4G connectivity for that very reason. We know that we have councillors that live in areas and we have staff that live in areas where Wi-Fi is woeful, to say the best. But that's why we give the 4G card in the iPad, so that you've got that. And as Councillor Roper has used that tonight and shown that that's effective. This isn't about taking things away. This absolutely is not about making things worse for you. It's about making improvements. We all know, and we've talked numerous times around broadband coverage in Norfolk, and it's an issue that we know we have, but it's something that we will take account of as we sort a solution going forward.
Yeah. Can I just ask whether when you are looking at this 4G broadband provision, are you looking at just one service provider? Like, for example, Vodafone is terrible in my area, but EE is very good. So does with the person living in that particular area, was that taken into consideration when giving or allocating an iPad to that, or are we just using one blanket service provider for broadband.
So in terms of broadband, it would not make much sense for us to use lots of different providers, because depending on who had that iPad, we would need to change that. We look at what's the best across the board. But what we have done with certain councillors who have had specific issues, we've picked up those as discrete specific issues, which I think is still the best way forward. So we know we've got a councillor in one area. I think you're on Vodafone. I think councillors are. I can't remember. I think it's Vodafone. But we've had a particular councillor that we've talked about changing that. Because they don't get that. So it is on a case-by-case basis, but it will be a kind of a one-size rollout, and then we would review that.
Thank you for that, Emma. Do we have any other comments on members' IT? Any questions?
Councillor Bullman and Councillor King.
Councillor Bullman, please.
It's a comment, really. We're spending an awful lot of time discussing the current situation, which I regard as a temporary expedient. Hopefully, in the not too distant future, we'll go back to proper meetings where we can discuss in the way that we've always been used to. So I wouldn't spend too much time discussing a temporary expedient when we know that we're going to go back to normal meetings face to face, I hope.
Well, here's to that, Councillor Bullman. Councillor King.
Thank you very much. I just make a couple of comments about earlier today with a conversation I had with IT. I had a fault with my iPad and spoke to IT for over half an hour trying to get it sorted out. We did finally get it sorted out once I connected it up to the Wi-Fi, even though they were adamant at the start of the call that I should be using the 4G to make it easier. Where I have my office in the city, Vodafone is absolutely terrible. So when I've actually conducted meetings, in particular full council meetings, when there are a lot of us there, the bandwidth is pretty much unworkable, which means that I can't use my iPad for even sitting in the meetings. I just can't see or hear anything. So I'm using my own personal laptop. I don't have a problem with using my personal laptop. But one thing that where I'm sitting now, I've got my laptop, my iPad and my iPhone all going with various different pieces as well as the papers. If I end up with another screen for the papers, that would make my job a lot easier. However, that's not exactly easy to carry around. The iPad, for how we used to do it in the first few months of my term with Broadland, was absolutely ideal for doing 95% of things. The only difficulty that I had was with emailing, because the iPad is not particularly friendly for sending lengthy email. I would in some ways agree.
Sorry, carry on, Councillor King. My apologies.
One of the things I would just say is that if we are going to get back to normal, I don't think we really should be spending a fortune on getting things set up in 3 or 4 months, by which time the outlook hopefully will be more rosy and we can get back to normal. I'm personally of the view that we actually take it that we're done now. We will fix any little job that we actually can, but we should really get the rollout to be better when we have the next local elections, which are obviously just over 2 years. So if we're going to be spending a lot of money now, it's going to be fruitless. That's how I'm personally viewing it.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm guessing you made those comments at the drop-in sessions that were the survey was available to make those comments.
It was on the survey. I couldn't get into the drop-in sessions, unfortunately.
I think your comment about spending money now and things we might not need later is very valid. But I think the whole members' IT piece, if I'm correct, has been going on for quite some time, and actually since before the pandemic as well. So I'm sure that's all been taken into account. But thank you very much for that comment, which I'm sure has been duly noted. Has anybody got any other comments or questions that they would like to raise about the report at this stage? No?
No one's indicating so.
Thank you very much. Okay, so with that, I would just ask that we don't need a formal vote again, but I do need members to note the contents of the report and the proposed actions at section 4 of the report, of which there's quite a few. Emma, do I have to read them out, or can I just say they are the proposed actions at section 4.1 on page 24? Is that allowable?
Absolutely, Chairman, that is more than allowable.
Thank you very much. So if everybody would like to raise a paw, if they are in agreement. I can't see everybody, so looks like everybody has. Are you
that
happy
should
with
be
that,
nice.
Jess? Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. We don't. That was the final item on the agenda. The agenda doesn't have any other a business section. One thing I would say is that I did notice in the terms of reference when I reviewed them last week prior to becoming chair, or since becoming chair, that there was a minor amendment that I thought needed making. And I think, Emma, you said the best way for me to propose this was to actually suggest that I email my amendments to members. Is that correct, for members to comment?
Yeah, I would suggest email it round the committee to explain the change that you've asked for. Then what we can do is we can bring that back to the next meeting, I think is in April, as a formal item.
Very well, thank you very much. I will do that. So on that note, I believe that this is the point at which we do declare the meeting closed.